Hey, Dane, have you ever missed something that you weren't even aware existed?
No.
I do it all the time.
Was I supposed to say yes to that
you're
question?
supposed to say that, yes. Because you're supposed to be selling. We don't do pre-roll. Anyway, we're adding something to the show tonight that hasn't been there before. It's the meme destruction segment.
Because we had a contributor from Twitter. So thank you for listening to the past episodes and contributing to the show.
Thank you so much. And it's that Julia Claire hates homeschooling.
She's not the one who sent it. It's something she said that the person sent
It's the meme within the meme. And I was just saying, 2 first names.
I already don't trust her.
You shouldn't, because all they need is a third, and they're just going to try to kill the president at that point.
Standard.
Standard stuff. Culture Corner. We haven't scrapped it yet. It's hanging in there. White people are racist. Have you heard this, Dane?
This is a completely novel and new concept to me. Never have.
You know, it's weird because I talk to him all the time. I always walk away from our conversations like, seem pretty racist. And then he turns his back and I'm pretty sure he's like, well, pretty racist. So anyway, Epstein didn't kill himself. This week, it's day 29 since SBF hasn't been prosecuted for all of his malfeasance within the cryptocurrency realm.
You know, the on weapons of meme destruction, where you get tomorrow's news today, our prediction is holding true.
Oh, I hope not. Anyway, main story. Digital banking, to parlay it onto Epstein, equals slavery. And we'll tell you why, just on the other side of this drop-in. You ready, Dane?
Let's do it. Welcome to Weapons of Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 124, which can be found at wmdpodcast.com/124. You can get the podcast audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. That's iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, you name it. You can also get the videos on YouTube, Rumble, and ODYSEE. If you want to link up with us on other social media platforms that sometimes have clips and sometimes are just, sane spaces for you to come chop it up with us and the other members of the sane space, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and now the Facebook competitor, FLOTE. You can also find us over there. But if you want to get access to us directly through the private Facebook page, $5 a month, go to the website, wmdpodcast.com. Support our work at that dollar amount, and we will let you into the Facebook sane space by invitation only, and you can talk to us, share memes, share podcast topic ideas, things like that.
I wanted to blurt out, she used to call me on my cell phone. If you want to get in contact with us directly, she used to call me on my cell phone. Anyway.
We haven't given those numbers out yet, but we might in the future.
Slide up in our DMs, see what happens. Anyway, we have good news this week, Dave.
Before we get into the topics, David, what is it?
We've been shitting on this platform for a couple of weeks now.
And they deserve it. We don't apologize for the shitting on them.
Correct.
They deserve it.
Correct.
However,
we've been super salty and for good reason. However, we got to give credit where credit is due. We fucking won the appeal. Can somebody phase in like a round of applause or something like that?
Yeah. So one of the appeal, as you recall last week, we said that we got our second strike. I forget which one we won the appeal on because they never tell us what we've been struck on or whatever. But our loyal sidekick, our video guy, nameless faceless video guy,
that will not be named again.
appealed one of our strikes on YouTube and got us a victory. So kudos to you, sir.
Not just appealed it, but belligerently appealed it. He professionally. I'll give credit where credit is due. Again, our video editor, nameless, Voldemort. He went very professional the first appeal, and this appeal he went a little more gloves off. He went a little more. Cat Williams on this one. Let some expletives fly. And we thank him for it. And it got the job done. We got denied on the first one, being professional. This one, you let a couple of F-bombs go. and cite tyranny, all of a sudden you get reinstated. It's weird.
You see, that's what I keep saying. People tell me all the time that I'm too, forceful with my language and I'm too angry or I'm too this or I'm too that. Well, you know what? I think a little righteous indignation can go a long way. And, work for that's the lesson I'm taking.
You're taking all the wrong notes from this one.
If you are right, who cares how you word about being right? Exactly. Do the Rick Sanchez method, all right?
You.
So, with that little brief celebration,
right and fuck you. That should be the moniker of this podcast. We're right and fuck you. Make the t-shirts.
I like it.
Nameless person.
Yeah, I almost said your name. You don't get.
You know what to do.
Make the shirt. Oh, by the way, we'll be getting links to, that reminds me, we'll be getting links up to our other social medias because we are going to team up with a print-on-demand business to, when we have funny shit like that pop up in the episodes or any other ideas suggested by people that are in that private Facebook group, we will put it on a shirt, put it on a mug, put it on a hat, and you'll be able to buy those to support the show in that way too.
Why
and
not?
Have some fun while you're at it. So, with that being said, the tweet or the meme, which in this week is in the form of a tweet that we were sent to destroy this week, is from a Twitter user by the name of Julia Claire. Not sure if that's her real name, but like we said, 2 first names, don't trust her. Is what
David Davidson. That's my name. Don't worry about it.
This is what Julia had to say. And we're just going to destroy it real quick and keep it moving. So she says, quote, "It's insane to me that homeschooling is an accepted practice in this country. Real teachers have to go through years of training and state certification, but an evangelical mom with a BA in marketing who, quote, isn't sure about the Holocaust can be like, quote, no, I should be the teacher," end quote. So, as I said in the pre-show, of all of the things going wrong in the world right now, Julia Claire is most concerned that parents take enough of an interest in their child's education that they're willing to homeschool them.
So what I heard is all evangelicals don't believe in the Holocaust.
That's
what I heard right there.
Awfully broad brush she's painting with there.
And then you say that all teachers that aren't in public schools are fake teachers. It's like, did you ever ask any of your private school teachers if they were real? Did you ever reach out and touch them to make sure they weren't figments of your imagination, that all 30 students in that classroom weren't just imagining the same person?
I'm pretty sure that they all were.
Reading, writing, arithmetic. Oh my God. The real teachers that passed their classes out of one bloodshot eye after a bender the night before, they can teach your 2-year-olds that sexuality is just a fucking social construct and it doesn't actually exist.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, when Dave and I saw us, we're like, dude, we could probably make an entire episode out of just responding to this tweet because there's so much asinine, just idiocy packed into just a few characters that you can put on Twitter. The fact that these people would take such issue with a parent taking an active role in their child's education, or thinking that the state has done such a fine job with education site indoctrination up to this point that jumping through their hoops to get their certification to be qualified as a professional teacher is what's going to make the difference between a good educator and a bad educator.
To teach the things that they say that you can teach, to teach the things that they say are right to teach the things that they won't allow you to think otherwise.
Right. And I mean, all of the social science data behind the fact that parents that take a more active interest in their child's education, actually their children typically have better performance outcomes in terms of education. We can throw all that away, right? Because as long as your state indoctrinators are pumping the right indoctrination into the kids, well, that's just the sign and the hallmark of high quality education that's teaching kids how to think critically and for themselves. Not those terrible, evil, no good, very bad parents who just, have the most vested interest in their child having a successful education. They can't possibly do a good job.
You know what this all boils down to? It sounds like they're saying the state has a better idea how to raise your kids than you do.
Which is exactly what some politicians have been saying over the last couple of years, when parents have been going to school boards losing their minds over the bullshit that, public schools have been pumping into their kids. I believe, what the heck was his name? The guy who ran for governor in Virginia, running for re-election in Virginia. He actually lost re-election due in no small part to saying something to the effect of, like, parents don't have a right to have a say in what their kids' curriculum is. He said something along those lines.
Well,
basically, hand your kids over to us, the state, and we're going to teach them all the values and education that we think is important. You don't get a say in it, parent.
and there's already being legislation passed that makes it almost illegal to protest anything that's being taught to your kids. So again, and that's a broad scope. If you don't believe me, look it up. I didn't quote anything.
It's not any broader than saying all evangelical moms don't believe in the Holocaust.
Again, if she's not going to make any more of an effort, I don't feel like we should either.
I agree.
So at this point, it's definitely becoming not only a war of words, but a war of ideas and of perspective. And they're trying to push out any differing perspective than they ever have, that they have, that delineates from itself. Does that make sense? Like, they can't handle you not thinking the way that they do, so they immediately eviscerate you, which is what we've always said on this podcast. They can't handle the debate. They can't define a woman, so they're just going to define you as a bigot. And once they've assaulted your character and you're no longer a member of our acceptable society, then we don't have to listen to you anymore. On to the next one.
Right. And I mean, here's the key takeaway. Here's something that David and I would agree with Julia Claire on, probably, is that a large part of the intrinsic value of children is the fact that they are blank slates. They can be, they have all of the maximum potential that a human being could achieve, as long as they're molded and shaped in the right way, et cetera, et cetera. Now, one view of that would be to say, as blank slates that have to get their values from somewhere, it's incumbent upon the parents to take a role in shaping the values of their child. Because again, as I said before, nobody has a more vested interest in their child being successful in this world than the parents themselves. Now, although Julia Claire might agree with the blank slate mentality, her view of it is parents don't have any right to instill the values in their children, and they probably shouldn't be trusted to do so either. So we need these nameless, faceless, essential government bureaucrats who just jumped through the government's hoop to get some useless credential that doesn't convey the ability to actually educate in any way, shape, or form, that they're magically going to have more of an interest in that child's formation, both educationally and from a values perspective, than the parents themselves. And so they have all of the right to indoctrinate your kids more than the parents have a right to educate them. And so, although we might agree on the blank slate mentality, the way that we come to the conclusions that we do, that homeschooling is a valid form of education and should be encouraged when and where possible because it helps the future of tomorrow be more critical thinking, to have more time to engage in other interests that form them as a whole human being, not just an automaton who can be trained to regurgitate facts and figures on a standardized test. We're going to come to different conclusions about that than people like Julia Claire, but we posit to you, dear listener or viewer, that our way of looking at that situation is the correct way because, again, just look at the educational outcomes in the United States. Despite spending almost more than any other country in the world per capita on students, we have falling educational outcomes. I suggest to you that the 95% of children educated in public schools in America aren't getting the education that Julia Claire thinks they are.
And I'll just, my last point on this is that the first teachers that you ever have are your parents. That's who you learn from the most. That's who you're with the most. You're with your parents a hell of a lot more, or you should be with your parents a hell of a lot more than you ever are with your teacher. So, and your ideals are established in your home normally. So again, that's the natural order of things. And Julia seems to think that the natural order of things isn't working as well as it should. So it's obviously the government who's done such a bang-up job and everything else that they've ever stuck their grummy little grubby little testicles. Almost said testicles. Tentacles in, well, they're testicles too, has always turned to shit. So they want to stick their tentacles into your kids' brains now. Good luck.
Yeah. So with Julia roundly destroyed, David, you ready to hit the culture corner?
I'm ready to be racist.
Listen, if you woke up and
you made me racist.
if you woke up and took a breath today, it was probably a racist breath.
Oh shit! I breathed white air.
So today we have, this isn't actually a current event. It's just a video that David and I came across recently, but apparently these statements were made around a year ago by a professor at Rutgers University. So, not some podunk backwater college. We're not cherry picking from, some tiny little college of hundreds enrollees.
West, East, West, Ministry, Borough, Chattahoochee.
Yeah.
University. Yeah. Technical institution.
This is Rutgers University. This is a major university. And the professor is Brittney Cooper. And listen, we're just going to let you hear what Brittney Cooper has to say in her own words. We think that it will be illuminating for you.
Look, I think that white people are committed to being villains in the aggregate, right? The real sort of issue here, and I've heard people sort of say it, is what I think that white people viscerally fear. It's not that white people don't know, right, what they have done. They know. They fear that there is no other way to be human but the way in which they are human. The thing I want to say to you is we got to take these motherfuckers out. But we can't say that. Africans and indigenous people being brilliant and, libraries and inventions and, vibrant notions of humanity and cross-cultural exchange long before white people showed up being raggedy and violent and terrible and trying to take everything from everybody. White human beings thought there's a world here and we own it. Prior to them, Black and brown people have been sailing across oceans, interacting with each other for centuries without total subjugation, domination, and colonialism, right? I mean, does that give people comfort on the day-to-day when you just having to deal with white folks and the travesties that they create and the sense that they want to destroy the planet? Nah.
David, I don't know about you, but I feel like anything that I could possibly say about that entire rant would probably get me canceled. So
he listed libraries and books. Irrefutable. It sucks, but when you hear it straight out, we just wake up. We know that what we've done. We wake up and we know.
Listen, I
hope she doesn't come for us, Dane.
I know. She sounds very violent and potentially dangerous. Because although she can't say that, she said exactly that. So
she didn't say it, but she said it. But she didn't. So it's a good thing she didn't say it because we didn't hear it. But we did. Good thing. I'm sure she's still stationed in Rutgers.
Yeah.
Rutgers or Rutgers?
Rutgers.
Okay, good. Just making sure we were still
Professor Brittney Cooper. I actually, you brought up a good point. I probably should have looked up to see whether she still had a job. Something tells me she probably does because all of that is okay to say. No problem at all.
But wait, didn't she call us what ratchety?
Raggedy.
Raggedy? Okay.
Yeah. In addition to other colorful adjectives.
Not to date myself, but didn't Don Imus get kicked off the air for saying these nappy-headed hoes got beat?
You are correct. Well, that's been a couple of years.
Don't forget.
You don't forget.
People don't forget. Why don't you go piss your pants again? It's like in the first grade. People don't forget. If you know, you know.
So yeah. Listen, do your own research. See if Brittney Cooper is still employed at Rutgers University. My bet.
She's probably
is that she is.
She probably has tenure. She's probably unfireable. Walking around saying these raggedy ass white people. You think she's going to the cafeteria? You raggedy ass motherfuckers, like kicking white people out of the way. You know what you did? Like the fuck? Just trying to get a double bacon she before I go to my next class.
So yeah, like I said, there's nothing I could say about that probably wouldn't get me canceled.
There's nothing to say. Fuck, white people are racist.
The fact that I even have a microphone in front of my face is probably racist.
Privilege.
So,
It's black, too.
Yeah, I know.
Shit. We steal all the good things.
So with that being said, you want to jump
Please,
into
before
the
we get
Epstein
canceled.
segment? Yeah.
Before we get Epstein.
So moving along to the Epstein segment, as David alluded to in the pre-show, we are on day 29. And if you're wondering how we're keeping track of the days, I just went from the day that FTX actually declared bankruptcy. I know that his fraud was longer lasting, much
More
longer time
expansive,
before
more
that.
expensive, right?
But as of the date of their bankruptcy filing on November 11th, 2022, as we sit here on December, what is today, the 9th? So December 10th, 2022, we are at 29 days since SBF has still not been prosecuted. And as you'll remember from episode, 121?
Don't ask me that.
I believe, no, 122. That we made the prediction that SBF would not be prosecuted because he not only played his part, as he was instructed to do, but he also bought all of the right people. And in terms of one of those people he bought, let's talk about her. So,
hold on. Brief pause before we jump into it.
Yes, sorry, go ahead.
Are you ever tired or scared that we keep getting this right? Because it feels like we just make the most dire fucking predictions. It's like, he's not going to get prosecuted. He's not going to go to jail. Why would he ever go to jail? He paid all the right people. And then like, but in our heart of hearts, we're like, oh, they'll at least sacrifice him to make it look good. And then they don't even care enough to put on the milieu to prosecute him. Kind of like Hunter Biden wasn't prosecuted. How the president is still saying he never knew, even though I digress. I'm sorry. It was supposed to be an interlude. Please, Dane. Continue.
No. And here's why I'm not scared about it. Because as we've said on this podcast many times before, I'm not even particularly surprised by it, nor do I give ourselves a pat on the back for being right about this
I didn't
stuff
want to. We wanted to be wrong.
more often than not.
Please.
Because despite the fact that the Julia Claires and Brittney Coopers of the world would just, again, as Julia Claire would be so proud of, in her public indoctrinated mind that isn't capable of thinking 2 inches in front
Probably
of her
because
nose,
she wasn't homeschooled.
she will say, right, anybody that questions any sort of the prevailing narrative is probably just a conspiracy theorist, because it's a lot easier to label somebody as that than actually engage with their arguments.
Because nothing bad ever happens, right?
So that's what they would say about David and I's predictions that turn out to be right more often than not. But we would just say, as we've always said before, we're not doing anything novel or gazing through crystal balls or anything like that. We're simply looking at world events, looking at the actions of human beings through the prism of human beings are rational actors that respond to incentives. Sometimes that has good outcomes, sometimes that has bad outcomes. But if you analyze it through that lens, you can get a pretty good read on how human beings are going to act given a certain set of circumstances or facts.
Basically, we're two white racist dickheads that just look at what's happening and what has happened, and then we predict the future.
So what Julia Claire or Brittney Cooper would just dismiss out of hand without engaging in as conspiracy theories usually ends up with them being way behind the curve, and David and I, unfortunately, being right about some of the worst things going on in the world. So, day 29, SBF not being prosecuted. We have Maxine Waters saying that she has no plans to subpoena SBF because he's been so honest and forthright and been upfront about all of the things that FTX did wrong. But when pressed on this, she actually walked it back a little bit and says, but I'm leaving it as an option on the table.
Her check hasn't cleared yet. When it does, she'll get right to it.
When it does, she'll outright rule the subpoena out.
Right.
But we thought that this was funny in juxtaposition with last month, or no, a couple months ago in October, right? Shortly after the Elon purchase of Twitter, the feds came out and said, we need to investigate Elon's purchase of Twitter.
Which was above board and which was totally spattered across every fucking media, social media, everything you could lock your eyes on.
Which, by the way, by all accounts, he overpaid for, which, again, the anti-Elon people are actually even mocking him for, like, you dumb idiot. You paid more than Twitter was even worth, you dumb.
Yeah, you fucking idiot. All for free speech? What a fucking moron this guy is. He has morals and values. What a fucking idiot.
So
this guy holds himself to a higher standard than the rest of us, just jerking off and doing whatever we want.
So
unbelievable.
The feds took about 5 seconds to announce that they were going to not only investigate his purchase, but since then have reiterated that they're going to continue to keep him under the microscope because his ownership poses national security threats to the United States. When you hear that, just read in parentheses after it, the United States regime. That's who they're really worried about.
And again, not to belabor the point, because God knows we don't belabor points around here. But isn't this from the same side of government that from 2016 to 2020 were completely obsessed with voter manipulation, with voter fraud, with maybe Russia got in and somehow tricked the system. We need to figure out, we need to tighten up this voter mechanism that is free voting for a free country in a free world. Don't you think that a man that bought something that may or may not have had one of the biggest fucking, I don't know, voices within the political realm?
Well, in terms of shaping, shaping what the votes
people's
were,
viewpoints. Yeah. Don't you think they would want to get, if they were truly trying to get to the bottom of voter manipulation, shouldn't they be behind Elon?
We talked about it in the beginning of early 2021 that it was something like 16%, which is a lot of people. 16% of Biden voters said that they could possibly have had their vote impacted if they had known more about the Hunter Biden laptop story, which the current owners at that time of Twitter nuked. You know, so again, when they say he poses national security threats, what they're referring to is exactly what he's been doing over the last couple of weeks of releasing what they're calling the Twitter files, basically opening the Pandora's box and showing the American public, like, yeah, this is what Twitter was doing under previous ownership. All the things that the conspiracy theorists were saying that they were throttling, you know, right-wing voices, or they were throttling stories to influence the election, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, they were doing that just like we all knew they were, but now we actually have the receipts and everybody can see them. That's what they're worried about in terms of his ownership, and that's what they have to investigate. Somebody steals $10 billion, you know, a Ponzi scheme. What did we say? It was like something like 8 or 9 times the size of Bernie Madoff's. We don't need to subpoena that. We've seen enough. He's okay to keep sunning his Jimmy in the Bahamas. But Elon, that son of a bitch telling the voters what we did, he's got to go.
We can say the same for, who's that boy over in Russia?
Vpoot?
No, not Vpoot. He got the Snowden.
Oh, yeah, Snowden.
Man. That's a softball.
Sorry.
Assange.
Yep, Snowden, Assange. It's all the same shit.
If we're really, truly trying to get to the bottom of this, would those guys be in danger? Would they need asylum in another country? I don't think so.
Listen.
But here's the thing. This is where it gets me to my core. It's like, is the earth flat, Dane? We have math. We have pictures. But at the same time, it's like every conspiracy theory. I'm starting to believe in Sasquatch. I'm going to go on a camping trip next week, and I hope I don't find him. But my whole point being is like every time there's a conspiracy today, and not Pizzagate, not this, that, and the other, all the weird ones. I'm using a little hyperbole right now, but every time there's a conspiracy, 6 months later, it's like, oh, we've looked into it, and there is actually data to support the fact that there was. It's kind of like all the people that were hesitant to get certain things put into their body over the last 2 years. We're going to dance around this with fucking elegance. And now it's coming out that those certain things may or may not have been more adverse than as previously established.
The things that shall not be mentioned, yes.
Correct, exactly. So, again, but what were those people that were hesitant called?
Bad people.
Grandma killers. The
second-class
blame
citizens.
For the fact that this thing even existed in the first place.
Yep.
And all the while, St. Fauci, up on his high horse, was never held under any scrutiny. It's just interesting That's all I'm saying. Like the dichotomy, like the different angles that you can cut from this.
Exactly. And, you know, I mean, again, history didn't start yesterday. There were no massive investigations, as there should have been, when things like MK Ultra were going on, or the Tuskegee experiments, or COINTELPRO, or Iran.
Midnight Climax. That's a fun one.
Or the WMD hoax that led to a 20-year war and spent trillions of dollars and killed a bunch of U.S. soldiers and starved and or bombed out millions of innocent Iraqis. You know, never any investigations for that. It's just, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50 years go by and the government just casually...
Of course we did that.
Under the table kind of says, oh, yeah, I guess we kind of did. Whoopsie daisies. We were just, you know, trying to do our best and we made some mistakes. So, you know, again, if you're even paying a modicum of attention and you say, well, it seems to me that they only seem to investigate or prosecute those who aren't, you know, in lockstep with whatever the regime wants them to do. And anybody who flies completely under the radar, you know, that's just the natural course of events throughout American history. So stop being surprised by it. That's all we're saying.
The best picture for the government nowadays is just George Bush landing on that fucking carrier with mission accomplished behind him. Meanwhile, there's about 19.9 years left of war.
Yeah.
After he accomplished the mission. That's
some serious fake news from
government
G-Dub.
In the nutshell. I tell you what, we got her done. Like, everything's burning. Yeah, you're right. See you later. Vote for us next election cycle.
Overpromise and underdeliver.
Exactly.
Always. And then get bigger budgets for doing it.
Woo!
All right. So with that being said, David.
I completely bankrupted your company. Great. We're going to give you a bonus and the company jet. Awesome. Thank you so much.
With that being said, and as scary as all that is, you ready to get into the real scary part of this episode?
Wait, it gets scarier than that?
Yeah.
So wait. What is this? Like The Conjuring Part 3?
Yeah, this is terrible.
It gets worse.
So we have this actually just started a couple weeks ago. So there are a couple of weeks into this 12-week rollout, and I'm going to quote a couple things from this article to really kind of give you the crux of what's going on, and then we're going to give you our thoughts and get you out of here before we see you next week on episode 125. So the CBDC, and to explain what that is so that we can just use the alphabet soup the rest of the time and not have to have the mouthful.
Helps you fall asleep at night. It's really good for recovery.
Is central banking digital currencies. And these are basically central banks around the world, here in the United States Federal Reserve, basically trying to use blockchain technology, cryptos, to have a digital dollar so that they can keep track of every single transaction. There will be nothing off the books anymore, as is the case sometimes with cash or bartering, et cetera, et cetera. And so the quote from the article is, to kind of tell you what's been going on over the last couple of weeks, is this, quote, according to a statement by the New York Fed, global banking giants are starting a 12-week digital dollar pilot with the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. The participants announced on Tuesday. End quote. Next quote. The project, which is called the, quote, Regulated Liability Network, will allow banks to simulate issuing digital money representing their customers' own funds before settling through central bank reserves on a distributed ledger, the New York Fed said, end quote. So that all sounds very benign and not remotely scary at all. And only the most tinfoil hatty of tinfoil hat wearing sons of bitches, like your humble co-host here, would be worried about such a test run program. Well, for anybody that is, again, paying a modicum of attention, this is a massive concern and something that should be pushed back against with the utmost force.
Well, I know what you're saying, dear listener. It's the same phrase that we've heard time and time again. It's like, yeah, they can look at all my life. I've got nothing to hide. I live above board. What's that book? You commit 7 felonies a day?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that, and you don't even realize it. Imagine that, okay, you're a good person, but you sent a couple of texts that were a little less than above board to a coworker.
You make some jokes on a podcast that might be taken a little too seriously.
You're a racist, whatever. All I'm saying is that that's all they need to hold anything over you. You say the wrong thing on Facebook. Gone. You doth protest too loudly. Flip of the switch. They're already doing this on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We should know. We should know. Like, it's just that easy on those digital platforms. What if all of your currency, which it's just this side of now, is totally digitally based?
But at least for now, you have the option to say, you know what, I don't trust this. I'm going to go to the bank, withdraw my money in cash, and I'm going to operate that way. You still have that option now. This goes through, you don't have that option anymore. And I mean, this isn't in the world of theory. This actually happened. We talked about it with the Canadian trucker protest. There were people who wanted to donate to the truckers, and some of them did through traditional currencies, and some of them did through cryptocurrencies. And in both cases, what did the feds do? They went to people who donated 10 or 15 bucks to the truckers and froze their bank accounts. Now, again, that's not a permanent solution as far as the state is concerned, because once you get your account unfrozen, because hopefully in those situations it was temporary, like we said, you can go withdraw your cash and you can just go back to operating completely in cash. Again, not if this stuff goes into place. And just like we talked about last week with fog data science and about how it uses your digital footprint against you to sell your data to local law enforcement, such that if you have the audacity, let's talk to the let's talk to the Brittney Coopers of the world, right? She's so worried about white supremacy, and she's probably, wanting to defund the police and all of that kind of stuff. Well, hey, Brittney, guess what? If you go to a Black Lives Matter protest and your local law enforcement doesn't take too kindly to that, not only can they use your data purchased for $10,000 a year, the small fee of $10,000 a year, to find out all of your geolocation and be able to come down on you, but if this goes through, they'll also be able to freeze your bank account. So it's not just simply about, hey, we're going to come knocking on your door if you go to the wrong protest or say the wrong thing in terms of speaking out against the regime. You no longer have the ability to keep the roof over your head or food on your table. And that's just on your side of the political ledger, Brittney. What about on our side of the political ledger, where we say maybe we have some strong opinions about gun control and think that that's a pretty terrible policy objective and highly unconstitutional?
They'll be able to see when you're buying them.
Don't say that, because that will also get you nuked and you can't go to the grocery store anymore, et cetera, et cetera. So every single transaction you make will be logged and known by the authorities. And so if you think that you're going to speak out against them, it just got a hell of a lot harder, unless you move to the mountains and have some neighbors and engage in a full-blown barter economy.
Well, here's the thing, Dane. What's that old phrase? There's no such thing as government and coincidence.
Yes, exactly that.
Isn't it just so perfectly timed that not a week or two ago, one of the biggest cryptocurrencies that's ever existed fell flat on its face due to corruption within itself? And not a week or two removed from that, the government comes out and says they're going to start a pilot program to make sure this never happens again and create a safe currency for all of humanity to trade. Isn't it just so coincidental that that happens?
Their timing is impeccable. You got to give them that.
I don't want to put my tinfoil hat on right now, because these are real things that are happening right now. But again, to go down the depressing road of weapons of meme destruction calls it and it happens, I don't want to call this one, but it seems like all roads are pointing to the government coming out with their own fiat currency, whether it be crypto or otherwise, digital. And it's the only one that we have everything gets absorbed into it, and we are stuck with it. And all the other people will be just as in tow with it as they were with that thing that must not be named, but they were telling you that if you don't do all the things that they're telling you to do right now, albeit you don't feel comfortable with it, you're going to kill other Americans, and you're going to be the person that is responsible for this thing propagating more and more and more.
Well, you know, the analog to this happened back in 1971 when Nixon closed the gold window. And basically that moved the US dollar completely to the fiat side of the ledger, because it decoupled actual money, real money that has tangible intrinsic value like gold, and decoupled it from the fiat dollar. And what have we seen since 1971? We've seen the increase in wages not be able to keep up with productivity because the Fed is inflating away the value of the dollar. So even though you're being paid more in nominal terms today, the purchasing power of those more dollars that you have continued to plummet, to the effect that your standard of living is not as high as it otherwise would be. And so that's the analog of this. That is the move pre-cryptocurrency that the government did to take control of your financial, future and make you, as much as they possibly could, a slave to their system. But that could only go so far as long as cash existed. This is now the next step in terms of taking complete control of your financial security. Because if you can't so much as even speak out against government abuses without risking everything that you worked for being taken away from you with the press of a button, or every single transaction that you make being logged and, you know, a permanent record, so to speak, being kept of you and all of your purchases and anything you do, whether it's legal today doesn't mean they won't look back at it in retrospect if it's illegal tomorrow.
Don't forget,
and come down on you for it.
If you said a woman is always a woman and a man is always a man, you'd be canceled right now. Don't forget that.
So, you know, this is just the next step in that evolution of moving people to, as David said in the pre-show, this is, in no uncertain terms, absolute slavery. That's exactly what it is. You wake up, you labor. Not only does the government go ahead and take 30% from you off the top, that's just the haircut for you to even have the audacity to claim that you're free. But then you don't even get to be free after that, because what are you trading the hours of your life for? These digital dollars that they can take away from you at the drop of a hat if you say or do the wrong thing.
Check.
That is absolute slavery. And that's what needs to be pushed back against to make sure that this never actually is rolled out and becomes a reality.
To keep my tinfoil hat on, I've already figured out their angle. They're going to devalue the dollar so much, but it'll still be valuable to you. It'll still be valuable to our government. So what they'll say is, you can buy the value of your dollar back as long as it's digital. Get your 1990 value of your dollar back. So you'll get 30% of what you already have.
Which will, of course, be a lie, because they can just push a button and print digital coins just as much as they can print pieces of paper.
But that's the point. That's the whole fucking point. Mm-hmm. Like, a digital dollar will be able to buy a third more than your actual dollar. And
until everybody's on it, and then it'll be, you'll be able to buy nothing.
And then all of the fucking sudden, everything is like a monopoly. It's a monopoly on your money.
It's like, what was that movie?
We were almost free, and then they gave us the big grain of cheese before we had to figure out the last maze, and then we bit the cheese, and now we're fucked again.
You're gonna hate this reference because you don't much care for this individual, but it was, I think Justin Timberlake was the main guy in the movie, and like you had the little thing, you paid for everything with time of your life.
What was it called? Fucking I don't remember.
Anyway, we'll look it up. We'll put it in the show notes. But
it's gonna be May.
But that's essentially what it's moving to, where you are already doing that in a sense. Where you were trading again.
It felt like it already. So why not just push it? It's like you're already having sex. You had the condom on. Why not take it off? Because then all of a sudden you make a baby and you're 16 years old. Back to, that was pre-roll. Fuck, I thought I was doing a callback. That was pre-roll. We don't do pre-roll.
Anyway. So you're already trading hours of your life for the things that you need to have a comfortable life, to have a roof over your head and food in your belly, and to have hopefully the disposable income to take vacations and buy your family gifts and, do all of the things that make life worth living, right? Because life isn't all about work. We're always reminded of that. And so some of that is already stolen from you explicitly via taxation, and then the rest of it is stolen from you implicitly through inflation. And now they want to be able to say, well, even though we're being benevolent, wise overlords and letting you keep 70% of what you worked for, it's actually an illusory 70% because at any point in time, we can quadruple the total money supply by simply pressing a button, or we can just take it all away from you because you said or did the wrong thing. That is, as we said, to reiterate for the final time, absolute and complete slavery. It is slavery without the chains. The chains are now just digital ones and zeros. And how you break those chains ain't going to be pretty. So let's make sure that we don't go into those chains in the first place.
Ugh. Well, if this isn't just the most cheery episode, just this side of Christmas, we might be on the naughty list.
Hey, we got a couple weeks left before Christmas to spice it up a bit.
I know whose naughty list
holiday
we
cheer
are on. And it might rhyme with the government. Anyway, Dane, after this very cheery, very hopeful, very illuminating episode, where can they find this to bring forth some holiday cheer into their families' lives?
Hey, listen, make sure that when you sit down at your Christmas dinner with your family, bring up episode 124. I'm sure that'll have some lively discussion.
Just be sitting there subtly cutting your turkey or ham and be like, this government fiat currency is going to be the end of all of us. And then everyone's going to go, we aren't inviting Timmy to the fucking dinner anymore. Because
but everybody knows, listen, Timmy, you might not...
Make sure you're wearing your "I'm right, fuck you" t-shirt from Weapons of Meme Destruction while
Timmy,
you do it.
You may not be invited to any more holiday dinners from now until the CBDC
you're invited
is rolled
to our
out.
sane space.
But once it is, and they get their account zapped, you're going to be the first one they call being like, all right, Timmy, you were right. How do we get the fuck out of this?
And you're
going
to
be
tell
like,
them, find episode 124 at...
You're going to be like, I don't know, bunker's closed.
Oh,
it's
I just
2 Bitcoins.
softballed the pitch for you dickhole.
Anyway.
All right. Find episode 124 at...
WMDpodcast.com/124. You can also find this on any podcast app. Just search Weapons Meme Destruction. You'll be able to get the videos on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. And then you can link up with us on our other socials on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and FLOTE. Facebook, you got to pay for to get in, though. Go to WMDpodcast.com. Go to... what is it? Support our work tab, $5 a month to get in there. But with that being said, buy a shirt, support us monthly.
Stir the pot at your next holiday get together.
Or hell, just do that. That spreads the good word about WMD Podcast and potentially gets us thrown in some either digital or real gulag in the future. Tell the world about us
two white racists espousing mistruths and half-thoughts.
So with that being said, please come back and see us next week on episode 125. And David, over to you to kick us out of here.
Stay safe, but more importantly, guys, stay free. Happy holidays.